Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB Strategy Show. 11 game action today, Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a good morning. I'm Dave Loughran. He's Matt Belman. What's up, Matt? How you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. Haven't seen you in a few days. Long emphasis on the long Mother's Day weekend. How was yours?
It sounds like it was better than yours.
Yeah, just, Mother's Day stuff and then birthday parties the day before. So just, happy the weekend is over.
Do you still do you get your wife stuff for Mother's Day?
Yeah, not like a huge gift, just like a card and like a little something, just, more like the thought that counts type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to do like the extravagant stuff, but
Yeah,
no
same.
longer. I got her a pack of Reese's cups. No, I got her I got her a nice bottle of wine and some roses. You know what I mean? And then I have my daughter. I'll make a card and then I have her like draw and ruin the card with
Love that.
crayons. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Pretty much the way it goes. Cards are a racket, man. Like a Hallmark card. Well, you pay $9 for a card that's going to get tossed in the trash. A lot of people get upset with me when I say this, but and you may too. Maybe do you send out Christmas cards with your family on them?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
First off, I'm Jewish, so wouldn't do that anyways. But don't send out like the holiday cards either way. I know plenty of Jewish people. I'm just razzing you. I know plenty of Jewish people that do that too. We do not do that.
You can do like Hanukkah cards, but
yeah, for sure.
People do it all the time, and it's like some people do it where it's just them and their dogs, and it's like, all right, this is nice, but please tell me. What would you like me to do with this? Let me hang all of these on my fridge. I haven't seen you in 7 years. Okay, nice. You got a family. You're proud of them. That's great. All right. Plus, everyone posts everything on Facebook now. Dude, I'm turning into like this. I'm turning into a real cynical. The older I get, I look at it, I go, nobody lives these real lives on Facebook. They're miserable. They're probably going to be divorced in a year. Those are my thoughts these days. I got to change, man. I'm becoming too cynical. I got to get back to my roots. You know what I mean? I'm a cynical person. Son of a bitch.
I have some of that too, and you're not wrong. I don't think you're completely right in those thoughts, but I think you're not wrong. And
I think I'm more right than wrong. That anyone who posts
sure
all of their family affairs, good and bad, either there's something seriously wrong with you, or only post the good stuff. There's some dark history inside of that house, Matt.
I could not agree more. I hate the people that post literally every single thing that happens. Like big events, sure, I get it. Like you want to celebrate whatever, do your thing, but the weekend at whatever, just I'll never get that. Yeah, man, just to follow you up on their card thing, they were out of Mother's Day cards on Sunday morning at like the drugstore and blah, blah, blah. The next store I went to. So I had to go to like the local grocery store and spend like $21 on two cards that weren't even stupid. Mother's Day cards. They were just blank cards.
It's stupid. I don't care. I don't care if you have $100 million in the bank. Either like with me, I'll just make them. I'll fold up some printer paper. I'll draw some stuff with the kids. Go to a dollar store if you're going to buy them. It's the same thing. And it's all going in the trash. You know what I mean? Just dollar store, 99-cent cards. They're probably $2 now. And then get rid of it. Exactly, Benny. Benny said at the same time, dollar stores where you go get cards. They're all the same.
It doesn't matter how much money you have, like you said. It's the waste of money.
Yeah.
You didn't get to be 100 million or whatever by wasting all your damn money on $10 cards.
Yeah, man. Jordan was telling me about that. Jordan's all in on GameStop. He just dumped his life savings into it. So that's not true. Anyway, let's talk some baseball. Fun slate ahead of us. I'll tell you what, this morning I was just going over this. We got 11 games because this White Sox-Washington game isn't on the slate, for those of you wondering. So instead of 12, you've got 9. Like if you go on DraftKings, you look at the game list, they put it to what, 9:45. It's not actually 9:45. I think it's like a 7 o'clock game or something like that. 7:40. Neither here nor there. That's not on the slate. I think I counted, Matt, 9 pitchers that I actually kind of like today. That's a lot.
Yeah, really, really deep pitching slate, especially up top with a few aces on the hill tonight. So certainly have our kind of pick of the litter as far as SP goes, with good options at every price point.
I think so. I mean, look, out of the gate, Dylan Cease. And by the way, how could I forget? Thank you for reminding me. Showtex, atone for your sins here on a Tuesday morning. Take 1 single second out of your busy lives and hit that thumbs up. It helps us greatly. Subscribe to the channel too. And if you're watching, listening after the fact, leave a comment down below. You know, that's fine. You bought your cards from the Hallmark store. There was one where I grew up. They're only $15. Ridiculous. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not holding it against you. Leave a comment. Say hi. Tell us what your thoughts are on the slate, of course. And if you want to listen in podcast form, you know, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever it may be, we got you. Happy to see all you guys in chat as well. Let's have ourselves a show and kick it off with Dylan Cease. All right. I know he's really expensive, Matt. He's 11,000 on DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel, by the way, too. I thought he would be more. This is just such a spectacular spot. This guy's fantastic. Really the only time all season long that he's gotten into any real significant trouble was against Philly when they tuned him up. Philly was hitting everyone at the time though. But you know, you go into Arizona, you dominate. You go into Chicago in Wrigley. By the way, I think that was like a moderate win game as well. 7 one-hit innings. It's hard for the win to have an impact when you can't hit the ball. 12 strikeouts. He's been superb. Colorado has a 2.7 run implied total today, not in Coors, but in San Diego. On paper, there clearly isn't a better option than Dylan Cease tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's right up there. He probably is the best overall pitcher on the slate. His actual numbers represent that. His underlyings are a little bit worse, but we're talking about a guy with a 2.19 ERA. His expected is like 2.77. So yeah, they're a little bit worse, but they're still phenomenal. Just the spot here against Colorado at home. It's baseball. Anything can happen. We saw that on Sunday with Zach Wheeler, who got touched up by the Marlins. So it's not inconceivable that the Rockies get to him here, but you could say that about every spot. So I'm with you. I do think there's 2 things. Oh, what's that?
No, go ahead.
I think there's like 2 things you can kind of poke holes with Cease. 1, yeah, that his underlines are a little bit worse. And 2, the ownership is just really, really high. So he's the top pitcher on the slate. I'm surprised he's pulling 50% ownership though, with other really good options.
What I was going to say is I think it's like you can't have Wheeler go out there. He got shelled. He's great. You can't have him go out. You can't have him go out there and just like expect him to be as good as Ranger Suarez.
Oh my God. Oh, we can't do this. He got so squeezed in that game against Miami too. Yeah, it is what it is. I was actually
the 4th shortest Cy Young odds, by the way.
I was surprised it wasn't shorter, but then I'm thinking like it's tough this early in the season to give a guy without that much pedigree.
Also,
you know?
Wheeler 3-1.
Right.
So yes. Yeah, look, Dylan Cease hasn't been, he's been awesome. The underlying numbers, I agree, might not look perfect, but they might look better after tonight. And then we can reassess the situation.
Good call. Good call.
I mean? Like,
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Francisco said, every stud pitcher I've chosen the last 4 days has been rocked. Dude, baseball can be real tilting like that, Francisco, for sure. Like I had a ton of Alec, believe it or not, the reason I had a good day on Sunday, because I had like 55% Wheeler as well, was because I had so much Alek Manoah. The Sims just fed me Alek Manoah. And I was like, all right, let's roll. And it turns out that's your guy at 5,600 or whatever it was that ends up getting the job done. It happens. Sonny Gray the other day was pretty popular, right? And he got shelled against, who was he going up? Was it
Milwaukee? I think he must have been. I didn't do that slate with you, but that was a short slate. I'm sure he was like 70% owned on that slate.
Got smoked. So, well, he got rained out of the one and then was on the next one.
Same with Gilbert the other day.
Gilbert got smoked by Minnesota, right? Was it Minnesota or Kansas? I can't even remember.
Minnesota.
But Yeah, exactly. So it happens, but it's not always a reason not to play them. Now, for what it's worth, we're going to talk about some cheap pitchers. There's some good ones today. Like, well, I'd say there's two that are viable, more mid-range than cheap, because you're not going to Quantrill, you're not going to Quinn Priester, Jack Leiter, these guys, JP Sears against Houston, Keaton Wynn against the Dodgers, Tyon against Atlanta, Ben Lively against Texas in Texas, Slade Ciccone against Cincinnati. There's a few spots that I just will not be attacking, but also some mid-range plays, a couple of them that I don't mind. And I can't wait to ask you about this one guy. We'll get there in a second. His initials are CP. That's
I had a feeling we'd be talking about him.
Uh-huh. But you have Cease, Sale, Blanco, Gray, Gilbert at the top. All of them 9,500 or above. What's wild about this, and to your point, maybe the 50% is too high on Dylan Cease, because there are so many, 34% on FanDuel. Chris Sale has Chicago. It's not the best matchup, but he's been very good. He's $10,000, 26%. What's wild to me, and I think it's an ownership or it's a price point thing for sure. Blanco's 9,500. He's got Oakland today, pulling 12%. Sonny Gray, yes, he's coming off a rough start, but this Angels offense is as watered down as you could ever imagine. He's only 14%. And then Gilbert against Kansas City is 23%. So there's a clear hierarchy here with Dylan Cease and then Chris Sale, Logan Gilbert, Blanco and Gray in a similar price range, just getting no love at all.
I keep going back and forth on this because you're absolutely right. And I like Sonny Gray and Chris Sale here. I don't think that they're that much of different plays than Cease is. I get it that Cease is in the better matchup, but all three of these guys are legit aces right now that can go and put up a 30-plus score basically against anyone. So I like Cease slightly more than these guys. I like these other guys, though, with their lower ownership. I'm just not sure that, like, you need to play them and get off of Cease because there's so many ways to get different on offense. I'm still going back and forth with it, but I do like Cease or Sale and Gray quite a bit. I don't know what to do with Blanco. I've kind of been expecting the other shoe to drop with him and him to kind of regress back to what we've seen in the past. He's been really, really good. His underlines are really good. I know Oakland's been better against right-handed pitching recently, but I'm not overly worried about that. Arrighetti was fine last night. Blanco's like the odd man out for me, but he's also getting the least amount of ownership. It is a pricing thing.
Yeah, look, with Blanco, this is also a guy that threw the no-hitter. Remember that? First week of the season?
I do.
If Blanco was 8,500, he'd probably be really popular today.
I agree. And the thing about him is, again, I've been expecting regression to come. Every start he's made this year, I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked at the game log like this morning, but I remember this from last time. He's thrown a quality start in every start he's had this year, except for two, and he went 5 2/3 in both of those.
You're correct. Yeah, 5 2/3, 2 earned. 5 2/3, 2 earned. One was in Coors, one was at Yankee Stadium. So
that's really solid.
Yeah. I mean, the price point, Jordan, do me a favor. Go to the Sims. I saw you ran that. Go to pitcher exposure. All right. So we're around the field on Blanco. A lot of Dylan Cease. A good amount of Chris Sale. 13% Gilbert. Scroll down. It looks like the odd man out, Sonny Gray. I don't see any Sonny Gray. Yeah, like 2% Sonny Gray today. That's interesting.
It is interesting, but then when you look at the tools, he's behind both Blanco and Sale in top 2 pitcher percentage. So when you look at that and that he's more expensive, starts to make sense.
Right. And Dylan Cease in the top pitchers tool, 33% top 2 pitcher probability on DraftKings, 12% top pitcher on FanDuel, 33% ownership. Obviously a guy like that's going to be negatively leveraged, but I guess the question here then is like, how likely are you, or how much of a priority is it, if at all, to try to get leverage off of a Dylan Cease? Like if you're playing a single entry or a 3 max, do you just run Cease out there? and get different elsewhere?
I think both strategies are viable, at least, so early in the morning. I think for me, I'm more interested in just spending up on both my pitchers, especially with a couple cheaper guys getting quite a bit of love that I don't agree with. The one guy we didn't really talk about here that's actually pulling some ownership that I'm not sure what to do with is Logan Gilbert, coming off the worst start of his career. Other than that, though, I mean, we've talked about the Seattle staff ad nauseum. Like, right there with Philly, it's the best staffs in baseball, in my opinion. These guys are much better at home. I don't love the matchup, but I don't hate it either. George Kirby was phenomenal last night. I could see Gilbert being very good here, and he's cheaper than those other guys. What do you think about Gilbert in this spot?
You know, it's crazy, by the way, that they have 4 pitchers with the with Cy Young odds. Like, among the 9 shortest Cy Young odds right now in the AL, 4 of them are Seattle.
That's insane.
It's crazy. Yeah, Bryce Miller 25-1, Gilbert 22-1, Kirby 15-1, Castillo 18-1. That's nuts. I don't hate it. I think Logan Gilbert's really good. I think he's really, really good. Actually, we know he's really, really good. He had one really rough start. He got tuned up. Only 1 home run. He also got Babbitt to death early in that, and then the wheels fell off completely. But outside of that one game, you could argue that he had been the most consistent pitcher in the league up until last start. Seriously. Like, look through his starts. He was as consistent as they come. Dude, Gilbert, listen to his innings pitched prior to last start. 8, 6 1/3, 6 2/3, 6 2/3, 7 2/3, 5 2/3, and 7. I mean, that's incredible efficiency. So yeah, I never have an issue going to Logan Gilbert at all. And this is a middle of the road matchup against Kansas City. It's not amazing. It's not the Rockies, right? But it's also clearly isn't the Yankees either, right? So I don't hate Logan Gilbert at all tonight. I like him.
I'm always intrigued with going to these stud pitchers like off a bad start. I mean, more times than not, they'll come back with kind of a vengeance. Now, that said, most good pitchers won't have that many bad starts. So obviously it's likely that he won't be bad again. I'm with you though. Like, ownership is there, but it's not crazy. It's hard for me to want to spend more for Blanco. And while I guess I'd slightly prefer Sale or Gray, I'm not sure about that. And ultimately Gilbert's just cheaper. So yeah, he does look pretty good here.
There's another guy out there. I want you to take a guess who I'm referring to. Mid-range, very little ownership.
Like expensive mid-range?
He's below all those guys we just talked about. Yeah.
Hunter Green?
Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, it was my second guess.
Is getting 7% ownership right now. 10% top 2 pitcher, which is essentially top 6 outside of all the guys we talked about. Tied with Detmers and Green. We'll talk about Detmers. I think that's an interesting spot too, especially with St. Louis struggling against lefties. But 7% on Carlos Rodon. Okay, has he been as good as we remember him in the past? Probably not. No, I know against Baltimore you got tuned up, but he also has been pretty good. This is not the most difficult matchup. I know, you'd rather it be a righty, but he's getting 7% at 8K. Minnesota, if you're looking at implied totals, 3.9 run implied total in this spot. I don't know. I really thought that he'd be at least double-digit ownership.
I think he's just a casualty of the slate for the field and probably for me. If you were a righty, I think you said that, then he would look a lot better to me. Minnesota is just a lot better against left-handed pitching, albeit in a much smaller sample size, but they're also going to throw like 8 or 9 righties at Rodon here. Like, I don't hate it. I'm not looking to stack Minnesota in this spot. I played Rodon before I did that, but I just think there's a lot of opportunity cost at pitcher today. And I'm not sure Rodon makes the cut for me, but again, I don't hate it.
Honestly, like looking at this mid-range, Hunter Green would be the odd man out for me. I'd rather go to Rodon or Reed Detmers over Hunter Green today. And I think
That's fair.
Hunter Green's very good. Don't get me wrong. Detmers has also just been absolutely trashed recently. I might have to dig into him a little bit more. I'm wondering like if there's something wrong with him because he got off to a torrid start this season. He looked fantastic in Baltimore, in Boston, against Boston again, at Tampa Bay, was just, looked really, really solid. He has fallen off the metaphorical cliff recently. I'm gonna see if there's anything going on with like, and maybe someone in chat knows, but velocity, anything, movement. Because normally I'd look at him against St. Louis and go, you and I have talked about it a lot. This is not the same St. Louis team that we've seen in the past, not even close, right? Like they had, who is it, Goldschmidt and who else that were combined 0 for 36 in May a couple of days ago, right? Like
Oh, it got way worse than that. Him, Gorman, and Carlson were at one point a combined 0 for 54 in May.
Dude, that's terrible. And the one silver lining is they don't strike out a lot. Do you know what the Cardinals just take a guess for me, please? Entertain me, indulge me for a second. In almost 450 plate appearances against lefties, do you know what their WRC plus is this year?
You'd have to tell me. I'm sorry, I got no guess.
64.
Jesus.
They have a sub 100 ISO against lefties.
Yeah, and to Detmer's point, he has fallen off a cliff, but his underlyings are a lot better than his actual numbers. And just to put it in perspective on that 0 for 54, this is like mind-blowing shit right here. And surely it's not happening anymore. Like Goldschmidt has broken out of it a little bit. I know Gorman's been decent lately, but 0 for 54 is the equivalent of 2 straight perfect games.
Right. Exactly. 2 straight perfect games. Yeah. Or no hitters. I don't know if they walked. I'm sure they did.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. You're right. No hitters, excuse me.
Which then it'd be a little more than 50. But we're splitting hairs here. So St. Louis, though, against lefties has been actually as bad as Miami and the White Sox. Like that's how bad they've been this season. So, and then just overall, they've been one of the worst offenses in the league. So what gives here? What gives here? Is it Detmers continues to struggle or St. Louis continues to be terrible against lefties? Where do you side? Where do you guys side?
I definitely side on the Detmer side. I don't really like this range of pitchers. Again, I think that all these guys kind of look like Rodon, where they've got upside, but I don't want to play them over the guys up top. So I'm not going to get to this range more than likely. But if I did, I think Detmers would be my favorite. Now, maybe a little more cause for pause because St. Louis has gotten going a little bit recently, but I don't care. Their numbers against left-handed pitching are putrid. I like Detmer's stuff. Yeah, he's hit a little bit of a wall, but again, his underlyings are a lot better than his actual numbers. So I'd be on Detmer's side.
Me too. Where's he? What ownership is he pulling? 4%?
Very low. Yeah.
Probably worth a shot for a guy that we know has really solid stuff when everything's working, right? Everything hasn't been working recently, but when it's working, Reed Detmers has good stuff. Win equity is never great with this offense, but he still has a 26% K rate. He's still good. Like, what about Hunter Green? Because this spot to me, can't say I'm in love with it.
Yeah, same. Arizona is much better against left-handed pitching, so that is like a notch in Green's belt, but he's just, again, another casualty of the slate. Like, he's been pretty good this year. I don't think he's been amazing, and Arizona is still a very good offense, and it's just an opportunity cost thing. He's close enough to Gilbert, Sale, Gray, even Cease. Well, he's not close to Cease, but he's close enough to all those other guys where I'd rather just spend up.
The walks have been a little concerning as well.
Hasn't given up as much power.
No, not at all. 0.6 home runs per 9, virtually nothing. Some of these cheap arms, I mean, I see Sean in chat talking about Cal Quantrill against San Diego.
He's been a lot better recently. I'll give him that.
He has. He's cheap. There's that one game against Pittsburgh, too, that he was electric. I guess it's zero ownership whatsoever. Suppose you could do worse. The guy that's getting the most ownership right now, though, is Joe Ross. 20% Joe Ross. Kind of scary here.
I do not get this one. Like, I just don't get it. I mean, I don't think that he's like a gas can, but there are so many good pitchers on the slate. I can't see myself playing a chalky Joe Ross, given the opportunity cost at pitcher, kind of the pigeonhole or the funneling of lineups that will be with lineups with Ross. I like the Pittsburgh side more than Ross. And considering Ross's ownership, I might double down on that Pittsburgh side. I do not get it. He's too cheap. I'm aware he's better than a $5,200 pitcher, but he's not particularly good. And I just don't think you need it on this slate. Maybe I'm off here.
No, and you know what? A lot of times this happens where guys get steamed because they're very cheap. I mean, Randy Vasquez yesterday was awful. Going up against Colorado, couldn't get through the fourth. No strikeouts, -7 DraftKings points, -7. That's always in play for these guys. And it's not great. I think what you're going to see is a ton of these Dylan Cease, Joe Ross pairings too.
Same. Kind of taking a deeper dive into the ownership. Is that why Cease is getting so much more love than the others? Because Joe Ross and even Waka are picking up so much ownership?
Maybe. Yeah, Waka's another one against Seattle. Although I do kind of understand that.
It's just a righty against Seattle thing.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that either, but I'd probably play him at the same ownership over Ross, I guess.
I think I would. Yeah. Waka's, I know he hasn't had a great season, but he's also not awful. Like he's not terrible. I think there's something to be said that Waka against Seattle's a perfectly fine play. Great ballpark for pitching as well. You know, Seattle has a 3.9 total today. So it's not like they're sticking out at all there as a quality stack. We have them at 4.1, but even so, that's pretty low. And then there's Chris Paddock. I wonder how many people are going to continue trying to ride the hot hand with Chris Paddock, because his price point has not moved. It hasn't budged since last time out, right? He mowed down the White Sox. Then he got lit up by the Angels. Well, not lit up, but he didn't have a good start. Then he mowed down the Red Sox, 2 hits in 6 innings, 6 strikeouts. And then he destroyed Seattle as well. 1 run, 10 Ks. So Paddock, over the last calendar month, has 3 of 5 starts that are excellent. But now you've got a Yankees team that's bottom 3 in K rate versus right-handed pitching. I know it's not a Yankee stadium, but still, like, there's a lot of red flags for Chris Paddock today. The one silver lining is this guy remains really cheap. And the truth is, whether we want to admit it or not, like, he has won people tournaments more times than not over his last 4 starts.
Oh, yeah. He's been popular also. Like you said, are people going to continue to ride it? He was like 50% owned in that start against Seattle. Obviously was really good. Not projected to pick up ownership today because of the matchup. I don't like the matchup. I mean, certainly it's scary. The Yankees are, one of the best offenses in baseball when they're at their best. But they also have a ton of righties and can strike out. So I definitely see the case for playing Paddock over like Waka or Joe Ross. Him versus Waka is really interesting to me because they have basically the same top 2 pitcher percentage, and Paddock's getting a 4th of the ownership. Not sure I want to play him here, but just that dichotomy is standing out.
It is funny. It falls off quick. Gavin Stone, Savali, Wynn, Pavetta, Quantrill, Lively, Tyon, Sears, Leiter, Priester. None of those guys getting any ownership today. And then it's just that weird mid-range of like good pitchers in bad spots or good pitchers who have struggled. Green, Detmers, Rodon, Blanco's at 12%. There are a lot of options here. It's just like, I guess here's the question for you then. If you have Waka and Ross both getting 20+%, Ross is dirt cheap. Waka's sub 7K. Who are your preferred pivots, if any, in the cheaper range?
Man, and their ownership has even gone up since we started the show. Ross at 23% now. Maybe I hadn't updated, but Jesus. You know, I don't have a preferred pivot. If I did have to choose, it would be Paddock. He's sitting right in the middle of those guys in our top pitcher tool, and he's not getting nearly the ownership. The way I think I want to get different, though, is just spending up at both pitcher. And there's plenty of ways to spend down on offense. So that's kind of how I'm seeing the slate. I don't really like any cheap option.
You think we can comfortably, not comfortably, but you think we can spend up at both pitchers today?
I do. You still have like Tyler Soderstrom at 2,100, like Mike Ford hitting cleanup or whatever for the Reds at 2,700, Kyle Manzardo for the Guardians. Like there's cheap bats to make it work for sure.
Okay. Let's get into some stacks then. By the way, only a couple days left. Yo, you got how many series knotted up at 2 right now for the NBA? I mention this because we're running a promo for you. A very good promo right now. The entirety of the week. NBA Sims Max, right? Sims Max entire week, $19.99, less than $20, right? So you're thinking you don't even play, say you don't even play a ton. It doesn't matter. You're talking about $3 a day to get all of our tools, boom bust tool, ownership, player projections, premium Discord lineup generator, and of course the crown jewel, the contest generator, the lineup sims, the post contest simulator, the late swap feature, which who knows, even in the postseason may be necessary. Even if you're looking to make a run and you know you're blocked out, $19.99, all of the tools, dude, playoff basketball, the sims have, and the tools in general have absolutely crushed it. Oh, you see it on the screen, crushed it this postseason, just dominated. And we had a few more yesterday that Jordan and I hit out, that shouted out the 3K, the 5K, the 10K. Crypto Go just going out of his mind. Jake DeWitt with the 15K win. That's MLB, but the Sims in general just been putting in an insane amount of work. And Corey, as always, mentioning the Sims for the showdowns have been huge, huge. Massive contest. Like, dude, the 20 entry max 4-point play is 100K today. The mini max for baseball is 75,000. It hurts my soul, but that's just the way it is. $300,000 prize pools for the big showdown contest tonight between Minnesota and Denver. And when you think about, okay, well, am I going to get enough 2-game slates to justify this? Not that you'd even need to, because showdowns have been killing, but Dallas and OKC knotted up at 2. Denver, Minnesota knotted up at 2. I think the only one that isn't, right, is Cleveland and Boston at this point. Knicks and Pacers knotted up at 2 going into today. So yeah, like you're guaranteeing 6 games for all of those. No better time to do it. Only a couple days left. Link is in the description. Link is in chat if you want to check that out. $19.99 entire week. All of our NBA tools, including the Sims Max. You get it all. If you have questions, hit me up. I'm always happy to answer them. And join us in Discord. Say what's up. We're happy to answer and help you out and hit you with all the tutorials you need to get on your way. All right, let's talk stacks. You made the segue. You talked about there being cheap. You said you were talking cheap individual bats that you think could be viable with the pitching today. What about cheap stacks?
So, yeah, obviously with MLB, everything goes hand in hand, right? Pitching and stacks, et cetera, et cetera. As of right now, Oakland and Minnesota are the 2 most popular stacks on the board. So that does a couple things. First off, immediately it makes my interest in Ronel Blanco and even Carlos Rodon go up a little bit because those 2 stacks just shouldn't be the highest owned on the slate. I think it's a pricing thing. Both of them are cheap. People wanting to spend up at both pitcher. I mentioned Tyler Soderstrom. He's projected to be the highest owned bat on the slate right now. He was popular yesterday. So not sneaking by anyone going there. But yeah, I definitely think it's viable to spend up at both pitching spots. You just have to be conscious of how you're building, I think.
Man, Oakland is getting love, huh?
Yeah, and they shouldn't be. I mean, again, they've been a lot better against righties lately. Actually, like tops, like towards the top of the league over the past like month. Still a very small sample size, and I'm not buying that completely. Like, it's pushing me to like Blanco quite a bit more.
Especially if he really does remain at like low double-digit ownership, like 10, 12% Blanco.
Yeah, now I will say though, like a lot of that Oakland stack ownership is funneled into Soderstrom and Brent Rooker.
Right.
Both those guys projected for heavy ownership. Langoliers also. Like if you're full stacking Oakland, I don't think you're going to have to worry about like same lineups or anything like that.
No, not on a slate like this. Definitely not.
Right.
How about the Minnesota ownership against Carlos Rodon as well?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get it because they're cheap and they are much better against left-handed pitching. They've got guys you want to roster against lefties, Carlos Correa, Ryan Jeffers, but Rodon is good. And there's some not great pitchers on this slate. You also have big pinch hit risk with a lot of these guys. I'm not going to play a chalky Minnesota here. I mean, even if Minnesota was low owned in this spot, I don't think I'd be all that interested in them. So the fact that they're pulling so much ownership, no thanks.
Just trying to see if there's any other, like, all right, if you look at our top stacks tool, and Jordan, you can pull that up as well. And then we'll go back to stack exposures, look in the sims there. If you go back to this and you just sort by top value, right? You have Oakland and Minnesota up there. So clearly right now, we're projecting the field's going to go pretty heavy towards some of these to some of these cheaper bats. And as you mentioned, you pointed out that like, you're going to see a lot of the ownership concentrated around a few bats in some of these, which happens often. Then you have St. Louis that's also pulling ownership against Detmers. That is a really interesting one to me, man. That one is really interesting because St. Louis has been terrible against lefties, but they're also discounted, and Reed Detmers has been really bad over his last 3 or 4 starts. But on the flip side of that, Reed Detmers is getting no ownership. Like we have Reed Detmers at sub 5% ownership. So it's like, which one makes the most sense? Detmer's given up 1.4 home runs per 9 this year, 13.5% home run to fly ball rate. And he gets the strikeouts. St. Louis has been god awful in almost 450 plate appearances against lefties. Maybe you get to exposure on both of these teams. Like maybe you look to get to St. Louis and you look to get to Reed Detmers. I don't think that's even remotely difficult to do, given that Detmers is virtually unowned.
I'm with you. You know what this reminds me of? Something you said a lot, like when the season started. There's so many numbers and stuff in baseball. You can kind of spin them in any way you want to tell yourself the story you want. And I think you can do that with both Detmers and the Cardinals here. I don't know what to make of St. Louis. Like they've been putrid all year, basically against everyone, but especially against left-handed pitching. But they've got guys in their lineup that have been very good against left-handed pitching for their entire careers. So are they going to continue to be this bad against lefties? I wouldn't think so. But does that mean they're good tonight? Probably not. Detmers, we talked about a bunch. He's, again, fallen off a little bit of a cliff recently, but his underlyings are a lot better than his actual numbers. Like, given the ownership discrepancy here, I do prefer Detmers. It's just harder to roster Detmers because there's so many other good pitchers on this slate,
Yeah, I agree. I know. It's like you could make the argument for playing neither St. Louis or Detmers. You can make the argument for playing both of them.
Ultimately, that's why I'll probably play neither, because I do think there's strong cases you can make for both. But at the end of the day, there's 20 plus other pitchers and teams to choose from.
Right. Jordan, do me a favor. Go to stack exposure real quick. Go to 5-man. Okay, you do have that. All right. I knew this would happen because of the way DraftKings fucking like put the players in there for the Washington White Sox game.
So annoying.
It's so stupid, man. So what you really could do right now, I won't make you do it, Jordan. It's an easy fix. You just go into the contest generator and then remove the players from that game. You know, just run it, remove those guys, rerun it, and then sim it. So like you would generate them, Jordan, and then go into teams and then CHW and just hit the red on all of them. While you do that, can we run actually we'll do that in a second. But yeah, it's easy to eliminate them. Like that's how Greg and I did that the other day, where there was that St. Louis, I think Milwaukee game. I can't remember what it was, where we just removed the whole game thinking that it was going to get rained out, and it did get rained out, which is super helpful feature. And you can, by the way, you ever guys want to check out the MLB sims, you're not into basketball, MLB sims, weekly, monthly, sims max, sims data, all the tools, link in the description and in chat. We'd love to have you join the family and run these tools with us and start winning some money and making some great lineups with them as well. But, you know, the other one that stands out to me, it feels like a Greg Ehrenberg or a Matt Belman special. Maybe not today, though, because they're not a particularly great offense. Although Reynolds was 5 for 5 yesterday, and I really needed him on that last plate appearance. I go, there's no way he's going 5 for 5. He was 4 for 4, and he homered. They have a few bats. Joe Ross is 23% owned. Pittsburgh is less than 5% owned as a stack today. Like, I would at least be doing everyone a disservice to not mention the massive ownership going to a $5,200 Joe Ross in Milwaukee, where he's just not that good. Like, he's getting ownership because there are other expensive stacks, but more so because there are 5 really good expensive pitchers, 3 of whom are pulling a lot of ownership today. And Joe Ross just so happens to be the easiest piece to fit into all of that. He's not guaranteed for a good start tonight by any stretch.
So this is more of a G. Ehrenberg special, you know, just picking on the opposing chop pitcher that's not that good. I'm 100% here tonight, though. I already liked Pittsburgh before I knew the Ross ownership. Again, not a good offense, but they've been better recently. They've got 10 home runs in their past 3 games, for whatever that's worth. It's not an indicator of success tonight, but certainly these guys are seeing the ball at least decently. O'Neal Cruz is on fire. You mentioned Reynolds. Good matchup for Sawinski against a righty that, you know, doesn't strike out too many guys. I like this lineup, man. And when you're getting it against this Ross ownership, I'm all about it. They don't really stand out in the top stack tool, but when you factor in the Ross ownership and how they're pretty affordable, I like Pittsburgh a lot here, like probably more than I should, but I'm, as of right now, for sure going to be playing some Pirates.
I think you made a good point. Like, they actually look decent before you even talk about the ownership to Joe Ross.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Also, it's not like Milwaukee's Great American or like Coors or Citizens Bank in the summer, but this isn't a bad park for hitters.
Not even a little bit. You've got a beat up Milwaukee bullpen. You got the full 9 at bats here. And again, like, I'm not saying it's going to continue for the rest of the season, but I'd much rather roster Pittsburgh right now than whatever it was 2 weeks ago when Cal Quantrill threw like a complete game shutout against them. So yeah, I think there's something to be said for whatever, that they're swinging a decently hot bat. Even if we can't, you know, quantify that at all, it still means something.
Oh, Brewers Park, it used to be Miller. Now it's American Family Field. Okay. All right. Anyway, if you take the rolling 3-year average for park factors on Baseball Savant, Miller Park is 6th in home runs, tied with Citizens Bank Park. You know, it's funny because, like, from a park factor perspective, 98, it ranks 20th, but in home runs, it's 6th. So yeah,
this is such a tangent, but I thought about this because we're talking about Milwaukee. You ever watch the YouTube videos of like the trial of that Darrell Brooks, the guy that ran into the parade?
That what?
That like ran into the parade a couple years ago. Remember that?
Yeah, in Wisconsin.
Yeah, in Wisconsin. Yeah. Do you ever watch like the YouTube videos of his trial?
No.
Oh my God. Some of the craziest shit you'll ever see.
Yeah. I've heard about it. I know he was fucking nut job, but I do. Yeah. Waukesha, right? Waukesha,
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah. Good call.
Mm-hmm. I do remember that. The Christmas parade. Yeah.
Was it Christmas? I can't remember all the details, but
I think it was. You gotta be a
he represented himself, and it was a comedy of errors.
You gotta be a certain breed of evil for something like that. But no, maybe I'll check it out. I'll if you tell me it's worth watching, I'll check it out.
I'm sure they have like a highlight video of it now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, Pittsburgh's not a bad spot. Another one that we had a question from Jason Gordon in chat. What do you guys think of the red stack? Sims keeps giving me them. I don't hate the Reds at all against Saccone. Gives up a good amount of power. I don't think there's anything particularly impressive about Slade Saccone. It's a fine park. You know, nothing bad about this park. I'd say it's like a middle of the road park for the most part. Yeah, I don't hate Cincy. Where do we have them top stack percentage?
They're pretty high.
Yeah, 6th.
It's so muddled though. Like
it is
after the Dodgers, like, and I guess Cleveland, it's all these teams look so similar, and not one team is projected for double-digit ownership. I like Cincy here. Ownership is there, so like they're not my favorite stack on the board, but they also really work with expensive pitching because Ellie De La Cruz is expensive, but they've got a bunch of cheap guys. Connor Capel, who will probably start tonight. Mike Ford, who I mentioned earlier. So I get the love for Cincinnati. How about Cleveland, though, against an uber talented prospect in Jack Leiter, who has really struggled at the major league level? Kind of like in the guards here.
Me too. And I don't think anyone's surprised when a good prospect struggles out of the gate, right? Like it's just, granted, it's only been 2 starts, but they haven't been good at all. Cleveland's not super popular. I mean, 7% is not that crazy. They're also, the thing about Cleveland is they're not that expensive either. Like a lot of these stacks, it's funny because you have expensive pitching. You don't have that many crazy expensive stacks today. At least not ones that you're, champing at the bit to get to. Ramirez, yes, very expensive. The top few, like, what is it? Ramirez, Naylor, and Jimenez. Those guys are expensive, but there are, and you mentioned this, there are some cheap ways to get there. I guess the question now is, how similar do these Cleveland stacks look like? Because you mentioned guys like Manzardo. If you want to stack Cleveland, you're almost certainly trying to grab like the 3 top guys, and then you're going to have to just punt with a few of them at the bottom.
Yeah, for sure. I think Naylor is really interesting because you can't play him and Manzardo together, and Manzardo's going to be higher owned just because of the price tags. I do think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I talked about like the funneling of builds with the cheap pitchers. You're going to see it with the expensive pitchers also. Cleveland's a team that's going to get ownership. I think because of that, I like them more as mini stacks or one-offs.
Yeah. Looking at ownership now, like Manzardo is 15%. Ramirez 8, Freeman 6, 8, Jimenez 6, Naylor 5, Brandon 4, Florial 4. So ultimately, none of these guys, other than the $2,200 Manzardo, are more than 8% owned.
Yeah, so easy way to get different is stack Cleveland and not use Manzardo. And as much as I think Manzardo is viable here, again, one of the upper echelon prospects in baseball. We got him for Aaron Savali last year in that trade. He has like 1 hit since being called up, and he's hitting towards the bottom of the lineup. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend he is some auto locked smash play, you know?
Yeah. He's not at all.
Not even close. Like, I know he's facing Jack Leiter, but Leiter had a lot of success at the minor league level. So who knows who's going to win that battle?
Clayton, hey, have to figure out a way to use tertiary for MLB. So much easier for NFL, yeah, and for NBA. I use that word frequently, right? So like not a secondary option, but a tertiary option, maybe. It is tough to do that for baseball. Because the truth is, for baseball, I don't even look really all that much at individual players. Like I like what you're doing here, like pointing out, and I think it's important to talk about. Oh, Manzardo's the only reason that Cleveland's getting ownership is Manzardo. Everyone else like 6 to 8%, 4 to 8%. But for the most part, you look at stacks as a collective, and some, sometimes Soderstrom and Manzardo, there's going to be times where like one guy rises, like Ohtani's done that a ton for LA lately, but ultimately you are, most of the time you're looking at these as just like a single entity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if you want to use tertiary,
so
it's got to be just as far as stacks go. And yeah, you're right. I don't care about individual hitters. Only bringing it up today because there's really expensive pitchers and there's a bunch of hitters like under 2,500. But to your point, like we don't care about individual hitters almost ever.
Like with football, God, I can't wait for football, by the way. Can't wait. So fun. Can't wait to lose every week and then have like one good week and you go, all right, cool. We're good.
I was thinking about this with last night, though, like watching some baseball. Football's like crack. And even for like the players, like baseball is such a long season.
Yeah.
Like we care so much every day about the DFS, but these guys you know what I mean? It's 162 games. Like they're not worried about the one at bat in mid-May against the White Sox or whatever it is. But football's different.
And with football too, like you could have a team that has a very high implied total and it can happen with baseball. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. You're out I bet it's happened to every one of us, right? I bet everyone can relate to this. You're out doing stuff. Maybe it's like Sunday. You get your lineups in Saturday, whatever. And you don't have time to watch the game. You're out with the family, you're out with your girl, whatever it may be. And you check the box score and your highest exposed stack has 11 runs and you go, fuck yeah. Oh, all right. It's going to be a good day. Then you look and it's like all the 7, 8, and 9 hitters, right? And it just turns out that like they have 11 runs that's done nothing for you. In football, that happens too. The random tight end gives you 2 touchdowns, or like the backup running back scores at the goal line twice, and you think that you're golden, and you're not. But yes, definitely, Clayton, more tertiary options to discuss in football than there are in baseball. Any tertiary stacks, Matt? You have your priorities, your secondary options, any spots maybe before we get out of here that you look at and you go, all right, I kind of like them. I don't love them, but they're worth at least us talking about it. What, noon on a Tuesday?
The stack that stands out most and the pitcher that stands out most as far as like a tertiary option goes for me is St. Louis and Detmers for all the reasons we talked about. Like, I think they're definitely worth talking about. But ultimately, like neither side is a priority for me for different reasons. So they're just tertiary options. The other one that I think you could put in that group, maybe they belong in like the upper tier, but right now I look at them as a tertiary option, is the Brewers. When Priester's not very good, they're high in the top stack tool. They're just really expensive. So hard to get to. If you're spending up on a team, would you rather get to like the Brewers or the Braves or the Dodgers? Tough to argue for Milwaukee in that regard.
This is a tougher question than usual. Top 3 pitchers today. And we'll do it like this. Top 3, like don't just put it this way. Don't just give me 3 guys at 95 and up. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah, for sure. Cease is the number 1 guy. I just think the matchup, and he's not crazy expensive. I mean, considering Sale and Gray are just right below him. Then, man, I'm going to go Gilbert. You talked about the consistency. All these pitchers are better at home. I mean, the Mariners ballpark is just conducive for good pitching. So give me Gilbert with the discount there. And then honestly, I don't love him here. And I think the Yankees stack is definitely in play, which we didn't even talk about them. But Chris Paddock, just because he's not getting love, he's no different to me than Waka or Joe Ross, who are both getting a lot of love. Okay. He might be better than those guys, honestly.
Yeah. I think he is. Give me Cease for sure. We didn't talk a ton about Sale, but I think you can roster anytime you want to play Sale, you can.
He might be the actual best pitcher on the slate for my money.
He might be, and he's just remarkably consistent, right? In any spot. I think Chris Sale is I like it. Gilbert at 92, though, yeah, against Kansas City. God, Sonny Gray is just so far down in ownership, but it is hard to pull the trigger there when you've got the 11K cease against Colorado, so I won't go there. You mentioned Blanco. We both talked about Blanco. Just knowing that Oakland's relatively popular, but I think I'll throw out, I think I have to throw Waka out just because I've been riding the wave of Seattle strikeouts against in general, but against righties. Waka's not an elite strikeout artist by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a phenomenal park, as you mentioned, with Logan Gilbert. Seattle has one of the lower totals on the slate, sitting at 4 even right now, 3.9 in some spots. Yeah, you know what? I know he's relatively popular, but I think 6,800 is still a very reasonable price for Michael Waka today.
Yeah, and even like last night, I wasn't on Brady Singer at all. His actual numbers are a lot better than his underlying, so I didn't like that ownership. He really, really struggled, but he still got 6 Ks to end up with 10 DraftKings points. So like there's a floor built in there because of Seattle strikeouts.
Top 3 stacks.
I'm going to go with, this is a tough one too. Give me Pittsburgh. I like that anyways.
I was going to throw Pittsburgh. I was going to throw Pittsburgh in there too. Yeah.
And then you're getting that Ross ownership. Give me Houston against Sears. I don't think Sears is bad, but I think this lineup just sets up well against him. And then one we didn't talk about at all, but there's a bunch of teams we didn't talk about because there's so many viable ones. Give me Tampa Bay towards the top of the top stack tool. Pavetta is who knows right now, and Tampa has upside. So give me Tampa, Houston, and Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah, just 2 more that we didn't mention. Ben Lively. I don't think Ben Lively's nearly as good as he was through his first few starts. So Texas against Lively. We'll close with this before we get out of here. By the way, guys, if you don't mind, much appreciated. You tap that thumbs up, helps us greatly. And don't forget, $500 first match deposit bonus on Sleeper. Awesome format, dynamic pricing, up to 100x, 100% match, instant $500 over on Sleeper. Links in the description and chat. And for those of you baseball heads out there, free square today on Chris Sale, half a strikeout. Also, free square on Nikola Jokic, half a point. So 2 free squares for new users, plus that big deposit bonus. If you're not there yet, great time to jump over to Sleeper. Again, link down there in the description and chat. I know they're expensive, but we have to close, because we didn't talk about them at all, with the Yankees against Paddock. Paddock's been good, but Paddock has also had some spots where he's just been murdered. And if that is in fact the case, New York's very capable of doing that. Is it feasible to get to the Yankees today, or is this just a price thing?
I think it's definitely feasible. I mean, they look good in the top stack tool. They're not getting a ton of love. They're expensive, but this is where the cheap pitching comes in. And while I prefer to spend up and look at some cheaper options, I completely get why someone would take the opposite approach and look to spend down on at least one pitcher and get to teams like the Yankees or Dodgers. I guess that's my question to you, though, as far as the Yankees go. If you're looking at these really expensive stacks, Texas, you mentioned, Milwaukee, I mentioned, Atlanta, the Yankees, and the Dodgers, are we just missing the boat and we just do whatever we can to play the Dodgers here?
Yeah, but what does that mean? Like just a ton of Joe Ross?
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's why I don't want to do it, but they're the most leveraged team and the overall top stack on the board. You don't see that too often.
Yeah. And yeah, right. And Yankees just getting very little ownership today. You know, it also is entirely possible. Sorry for running this a little long on you guys, but it is possible looking at this. Like if you don't have Dylan Cease, there are still 8 and 9K pitchers that you can pair with other mid-range guys to make it work. Like you don't have to play Dylan Cease in those lineups.
No, I mean, I guess my problem with that is if I'm not playing Cease, the other guys I like are still expensive. So it's still hard for me to make it work. But I think that that's where like a Reed Detmers does come into play.
Yeah. It's just always funny to think about it. Like when you kind of zoom out on something like this and go, it's very possible that Dylan Cease has a nice game, but it's only 25 DraftKings points, and you definitely don't need it at 11K. Don't get me wrong. I think he's by far the best pitcher on the slate, but like he's still only, and I say only because it's important. It's a big number, 33% top 2 pitcher probability. Still 2/3 of the time he's not going to be.
And he's getting owned like he's going to be way more than that. So he is getting over-owned. Now, you don't have to fade him, but I do think that it's probably more viable than the field is leading on because there's so many good pitching options. And I think Cease is very good. So I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. He is not like Jacob deGrom from a couple years ago, Max Scherzer. He is not those guys, at least not to me.
Fun show, man. Hey, wildly appreciative for you guys hanging out every day. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, follow Matt at Fantasy Tips Matt. I'm at Lafayette_D over on Twitter. Oh man, I meant to tell you, I smashed I should have thrown this out there on Twitter, but I did it right before the game start because it's the only way DraftKings will let you get like parlay money down. Like if you try to parlay something in the morning on DraftKings, they just rape you. But just went straight giddy under same game parlays. The old Greg Ehrenberg special just went straight unders. And I'm like, dude, he started, he hit 3, he had 5 points early. I'm like, there's no way that this guy stays out there. And then he didn't start the second half. And I'm thinking, all right, we got this. There are, just throwing this out there for you guys. You ever want to join us on Odd Shopper or just on Twitter, wherever it is, like we're doing Dinger Tuesdays for homers tonight. Doing some awesome promos and everything over on Odd Shopper. If you're in the betting, you should be. If you're playing DFS and you're not betting, we're doing these pick'em sites. What are you doing? If nothing else, a great way to supplement everything on those losing DFS days. And we all know there's a lot of them. Yeah, Helms, Karis LeVert was another one yesterday, but the Giddy stuff, dude, the Giddy, it was very obvious that that guy was about to fall out of the rotation and he still had props out there. Some books didn't even hang props. But Matt, it is very possible in the postseason, whether you guys want to come join us or not, just keep this in mind. When teams make adjustments, sometimes they make significant enough adjustments to where the books still have lines posted on these guys and alt lines that are wrong and just props in general, where you can actually, we saw it last year with Golden State with Kevon Looney, where it was like he was sick. We didn't know if he'd play. You could same game parlay the unders on all of his props and get great odds on that, given what was expected, and absolutely smash that. So the adjustments you see in the postseason compared to the regular season create some really big opportunities from a betting standpoint.
Man, and that goes hand in hand with what you talked about, like at the very beginning, about how if you're hitting 56% of your bets, you're doing real good work. When you can get freebies like that, it just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, man. Yo, come join. DFS is fun, but like betting is so fun. Even Jordan out there in California been hitting the prize picks and sleeper streets hard lately. So yeah, let's have some fun tonight too. Little dinger action, get some home runs, win. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. I assume it's a live before a lock. I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule. Tomorrow's a Wednesday. So we'll either be here at 11 or 12. You guys know where to find us. Appreciate you hanging out and supporting the channel as always. Peace.